What smoking all my dragons, divine, righteous, almighty, greats, overachieving, never slacking. We are back with a new video today. We got American versus European suburbs and why US suburbs suck. That's not nice, all right? But with that being said, we're gonna hop into this and really see what they got to say, and we'll see if I'm in agreement or not. Do US suburbs suck? We'll find out. Here we go.
This is a typical American suburban street. It's wide, the houses are very far apart and look mostly the same. There is barely anything on the well-manicured lawns, post boxes, a few trees or bushes, and the occasional fire hydrant. Now compare this to a suburb in Leipzig, Germany. What differences do you notice? First off, there is stuff around you. The streetscape is very diverse and mentally engaging. In comparison, the American suburb looks like a desolate urban wasteland. Also in the European suburb, the street
Well, not all American suburbs look like that though. He got to break down exactly what town that is, what state that is. Like there got to be a little more context as far as the American suburb, as well as the German suburb.
is narrow, there is a 30 km/h speed limit, and the buildings are close together. Do notice the tram tracks. In this suburb, you can live car-free. If you want to go to the center, you can either take the tram or ride your bike for 20 minutes on dedicated bike lanes. Or take the S-Bahn because there is also a train station. In the American suburb, you have no option but to drive. Head out onto the busiest road, a horrifying mix of street and road, onto the jammed highway, and after an hour you'll be in the center, searching for a parking spot. How about going to a restaurant? In the European suburb, there are dozens of different, unique, local restaurants reachable on foot, by bike, or public transit. In the American suburb, you're an hour walk away from a chain restaurant next to a busy street.
It 100% depends on where you are because I've lived in a lot of suburbs where things are our walking distance are pretty close. I could take you to many towns upstate New York that are suburban where you everything's in biking or walking distance for the most part. So I really want to know what American suburb he's talking about because it just I don't know. I don't know. I've never really been to an American suburb that's similar to what's shown in this video.
Road. If you want to eat, you gotta get in your car. What if you have children? In this European suburb, there are 3 schools close by. Kids can walk or bike there on their own and learn to be independent early on. In the American suburb, a child could get to school after 35 minutes of walking, mostly along a busy arterial road, also having to cross a 6-lane road. And somehow, there's no crosswalk, so kids have to be driven to school every day by mommy and daddy. The same goes for sports. Over here, kids can take a 10
Once again, I just got to keep saying, guys, it really does depend on the suburb. It really does, because it's too many suburbs in America to even put them all in a box. That's why I say I got to know exactly where this is that he's talking about.
minute walk to the nearest sports field or a 3-minute bike ride on calm, safe streets on their own. In the US, it's a 40-minute march through a maze of streets partially along a major transit artery. You gotta get in the SUV and let mommy drive you to practice. This is where the term soccer mom originates from, by the way. People lament today's children for being overly dependent on their parents. But in such neighborhoods, children don't have a choice but to be dependent. Otherwise, they cannot go anywhere. They are stuck at home. In contrast, in European suburbs, kids can be let out safely to move around on their own, to go to places they want to, without the need for the mommy and daddy taxi service. Do note that yellow residential building on the left. That is a mid-rise. European suburbs tend to be a mixture of those and single or multi-family homes, like on this street. Zoning in US suburbs only allows for single-family homes, and they are usually placed very far apart, leading to low density and long distances. This makes public transportation non-viable. Over here in Europe, hundreds of people live within walking distance of this tram stop. In the US, if you put a tram stop here, you'd have a few dozen people living within walking distance. Meaning, even if you built public transit here, almost nobody would take it, because no matter how you build it, people would be too far away from it. If you're half an hour away on foot from the nearest tram stop, you'll take your car instead, and people do. So giant highways had to be built, rammed right into the city, usually demolishing non-white neighborhoods in the process. The end result was mass motorization all across America, constant traffic jams, noise and pollution, but not for the suburbanites. It was the urban dwellers, particularly those who were poor, who had to live near high traffic areas in cheap, low-quality housing. The suburbs also became a growth Ponzi scheme, where income from the suburbs couldn't cover future infrastructure overhauls, so the city had to expand and sell new properties constantly to get enough money to maintain what they already have. Not Just Bikes did a great video about this, link in the description. The suburbs and car-centric development were useful political tools in the 1950s to enforce a Christian conservative, white nationalist hierarchy within American society, where white men are on top, women are at home, fully dependent on their husbands, and where all resources are channeled towards the white middle and upper class in the form of billions in state subsidies. And the rest of society, poor people, non-whites, were left to fend for themselves in decaying urban centers, sucked dry financially by the parasitic suburbs around them. Car-centric planning became a weapon of choice for conservatives in order to maintain the unequal status quo. And this phenomenon isn't unique to America. In Europe, as our cities transition away from cars, the opponents of this change are almost always conservatives. While the incumbent Paris mayor campaigned on eliminating 50,000 parking spaces, her conservative opponent, who looks frankly diabolical even by French standards, wanted to halt decongestion measures. In Prague, a city overrun by cars, conservatives keep screaming about the cyclo-fascists ruining the city after a shadow is painted somewhere. Meanwhile, conservative district mayors are busy turning sidewalks into parking lots. In Madrid, the conservative city leadership cancelled the ultra-low emission zones, leading to local protests to bring them back. In Budapest, we have Orbán's far-right conservatives screaming about how there is a witch hunt against drivers by the new center-left mayor, and complaining how in inner-city Budapest it's almost faster to walk now than to drive. Even in Germany, Bavarian conservatives are dumping money into highways while letting the rail network fall into disrepair. As a rule of thumb, in every city with decongestion measures, you also find conservatives screaming about the war on cars, the symbol of hierarchy in transportation, where the affluent suburban minority gets to occupy 80% of public space inside cities, compared to the more egalitarian space use of public transit and bicycles. God forbid you have to get out of your giant SUV of death and get on a tram with the peasants. Of course, upholding the conservative hierarchy isn't why suburbs are built today in the US. It's mostly just a necessary continuation of the Ponzi scheme that began with the first suburbs. Also, it's due to faulty zoning codes not allowing for mid-rise developments that would actually make more money for the city, increase density, and make public transit viable. In Europe, our suburbs are mixed, with both mid-rises, single and multi-family homes. They're an organic part of the city and contribute fairly to the local budget. There is also subsidized, affordable public transit. All in all, it's more egalitarian. And if the US situation sounds depressing in contrast, as an American, there are things you can do to potentially help change things. If there is a local transit riders union, go join it. Look if there are any initiatives on the ballot for traffic calming, bike lanes, etc. Show up to your local town hall meetings and advocate for zoning reform, ending parking minimums, and so on. If you're persistent enough, your ideas will be heard, and you can help push America back towards sensible, fair, more egalitarian urban planning, one neighborhood at a time. That's what I would do if I were you. Thank you for watching. Oh, and by the way, there is now a new membership option for my channel, so if you wish to support me making content like this, please consider becoming a member by pressing the join button next to the subscribe button. And I'll be seeing you next time.
Okay, so this was a real informative video. At the end of the day, it's like it made me question, like, have I actually ever really lived in a suburb? Because everywhere I grew up, I grew up in Endicott, New York, but anywhere I've lived, whether that be Altoona, Pennsylvania, um, Wilkes-Barre, just different areas, Waverly, New York. I would consider those suburbs, but now I'm starting to wonder: are those actually suburbs? After watching this video, are those suburbs? Because I mean, I could get to places quickly. A lot of places, schools, malls. It really depends on where you are. That's why I just kind of like watching this. I don't want people to sit here in Europe and think that this is every suburb, unless where I've lived just ain't really the suburbs. I don't know, but it looks roughly the same. But I don't know. I don't. That I've never. really been through those things much that they were talking about. I always felt like things were close enough, not like living somewhere where something's like in 30 minutes away or or something crazy like that. Oh, so it definitely did. Like then again, I haven't lived in North Pacific West or the South or things like that. I don't know how the suburbs are out there, so maybe he was talking about a specific region that wasn't specified in the video. But overall, Europe. I mean, Europe seems to do everything right. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. From what I've noticed, from what I've seen, it seems like Europe is just ahead on a lot of things. And I could be wrong about that, but that's just how I feel. Uh, they just kind of they got things down pack a little more. You know, but I could be wrong. With that being said, I'm looking forward to your opinions. I'm looking forward to learning something. But from an American perspective, I just I've lived, like I said, I've lived in what I would consider the suburbs, and nah, it didn't. It didn't feel like this video. But with that being said, original link in the description. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this video. And let's have a conversation. I'm waiting. I want to have a conversation with you guys in the comments about this and really get to the bottom of this video and you guys' opinions. So I will definitely be commenting back. Original link in the description if I didn't say that already. And we'll see you soon. Much love.